So color temperature is it's very important for you to be able to get to what you would consider neutral colors so that a lot of times this is necessary when you need to make one shot match with another. And that is much of the time you're working at doing that, either with control of the light sources by uh, adjusting color temperature or color balance or correcting the lights that you're using. But alternately, sometimes you're doing it in camera. You're enhancing the color or you're cooling it off or warming it up. Now, it would be possible for us to put a series of color compensating filters or color correction filters or light balancing filters on the in front of the lens. But really, this camera gives you so many options or features for changing the look in camera that some of those features are unnecessary. Now, one thing that you cannot do in camera that you could do with filters, um, one thing is, of course, diffusion, changing, adding glows or little specular, breaking up little specular highlights and so forth. The other thing that you could do is adding graduated filters that darken the sky, uh, at the top and then allow it to graduate to normal at the bottom. Those are not digital effects that you can do in camera, but in many cases these days you can do it in post. You can do it in an application like SpeedGrade, or you can do it in a number of other applications that are out there and available. Um, so, and those would be applications for color grading at the end of a project. But many projects do not have that kind of post time. And so if you don't, you need to be thinking and working ahead. Also, you not only don't have time necessarily, but if you cost the production company or the producer or the post house additional time correcting the color balance of your shots, you may not get hired the next time to do that. Okay, so it's important that you learn the basics of this, and so let's let's move a little bit ahead here, and we're going to look at. Hold on one second. Okay, so we're going to look at a basic color chart that has been shot under the same kind of light that you have in your kit, 3200 Kelvin tungsten balanced light. So this is a chart that has been shot under tungsten light, and I, we were talking about the sensor, and I want to point out something about the sensor. Note how there's a little muted color that you're getting with this tungsten light. The camera is properly balanced, properly exposed. Okay, but let's look at a daylight, actual sunlight and daylight balance out of the same sensor.
Big difference.
Big difference. Yeah. Do you see? There's tungsten, there's daylight. Look at the difference in the chart colors. Which ones really have enhanced and pop?
No, the sunlight.
The daylight.
The warm rays, yeah. Blue a little bit. Everything's just a little more saturated, a little cleaner looking. Even though the grays are the same. Note the grays, they're the same values. But look at the color saturation and intensity of the colors. So what does that tell you about the bias of your sensor? but it's
You need-
biased toward daylight.
Yeah.
It's designed to work best under daylight, and the change to tungsten is um, you know, it's an artificial change. However, if you take this image coming off the sensor in tungsten light and you enhance it in post with a little contrast and gamma shift, you can get just as nice and sharp an image. I have on purpose not changed that shot here in order to demonstrate the differences. But it's possible to get that kind of milkiness that's in the shot out and get one thing you can notice is as I go back, notice how solid the blacks are there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the gamma difference, you have a lot of highlightation is what that would be called, where you see the blacks around the color chips is actually kind of gray. So you're getting a little milkiness to the image. Okay, but I think that that also probably has to do as well with the color profile I was using. The color profile is probably also a little performs better under daylight. Okay, so you have to kind of experiment before you decide that it's one thing or another that gives you a better image. You have to kind of play around with the settings that you're going to use under this kind of light versus that kind of light. Okay, and so that may be something that you'll want to play with and experiment with as you kind of grow along on this. Okay, so here's, again, we're back to 3200, tungsten balance, everything's the same. Now, we're going to introduce a daylight key into the same scene, and now look what happens. We're still tungsten balanced. Now, what happens with a daylight source? What does it do to the image?
Washes it out.
Does it wash it out? What happened to the colors? What happened to them? They went bluish, right? The skin tones went bluish.
Right.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, see? Okay. It's because daylight is a bluer light.
Right. Mostly blue, or it was the majority. The biggest color of the colors is the spectrum is blue in daylight.
All right. Now, so under daylight, under a daylight key, we might want to change our color temperature balance to daylight. So let's see what happens when we do that. Now what changed?
It removes the blue.
It removed the blue, but remember her backlight, see her hair?
Mm-hmm.
It's a tungsten hair light back there. Now what happened to that? Is it still the same warmth it was, or is it warmer?
No, it's warmer.
It's warmer because we went to a daylight balance. That makes the warm light even warmer, like double warm. Got it?
Got it.
Okay. And here's a close-up, same thing. But you can see how pleasant and accurate skin tones are if you're at the right color balance for that shot, for that lighting, basically. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so here's daylight with a daylight kicker. Now it's neutral, right? The hair light on the right side is neutral. And
I'm sorry, a daylight kicker is what now?
the kicker. It's the light that's coming from the back angle off to the right.
Okay.
It kicks. It's like what we call a kick angle.
This is actual daylight then.
Well, no, it's not. It's artificial.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So it's actually, this is when a daylight kicker is artificially induced daylight.
Yeah, but it wouldn't necessarily be. It could be daylight. If you had daylight coming at that angle, it would still be a kicker light.
Okay, all right. That's okay. That
it's the angle of the light that's called the kick angle.
I gotcha.
It's a back slightly to the side angle that just brushes the cheek or the jaw or the neck line. It's the Bruce Willis hero blue kick light, you know, kind of.
Yep.
That's it. Here, if we look at the light, you can see the light source lighting the face in the eye light. The eye light basically is formed in this case by the key light. Okay. Also notice HD shows every flaw in the skin.
Yeah.
That's why we use a special kind of makeup, you know, that oftentimes they'll airbrush makeup on because HD shows everything. All right, so here we are doing a white balance at 3200 Kelvin. Okay, here's what the light looked like before we did the color balance. It was blue. We're set on 3200, so that means that the daylight is going to look very blue. But once we do a white balance, using a white balance card, the camera tells itself that white card needs to be blue because that's what we've given it as the reference to what white is.
And how we do a white balance.
Okay, I'm glad you asked that. In your kit, you've got a card just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what you want to do is you want to set your camera on that card, and I'm going to escape out of this for a moment, and we'll come back to it.
What's the optimal distance?
Here, what you want to do is let's say that that's my white card. That's my white card right here. What I want to do here is I want to fill the lens at any distance. If you're further away, you're going to zoom in until you fill it, but you're going to fill the image with that subject. Okay, and let me get let me get out of this smooth slow record too. Okay, so you're going to fill the image with that. So I need to zoom in until I filled it entirely. And of course, this being green won't give me an accurate setting. But okay, so now we're going to turn our camera to the side just so we get a look at what we're doing. All right, so you have a switch that's at the bottom here, and you have a button here called white balance. Okay, so if I press that button, I want you to notice right here on here, you're getting an indicator. Let me turn it a little more. You see this indicator? Right now it's set on B on the switch, and it's got a little symbol that looks like an upside down flower, or it looks like a flower shape. That's the symbol for the one push button that's right here. Okay, let me see if I can show you that. Well, I can't focus that close, can we? The one push button is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's the switch. Okay. Okay, so actually it focuses right there. There we go. So there's your one push button. The three features that you need, the four features you need. You've got the white balance button there that turns on or off your indicator here and also gets you in the white balance mode. You've got your AB and preset switch here. You've got your one push button here and your jog wheel. The other thing that you're going to access sometimes is your menu, but you're going to set a default for white balance, and I'll show you what that means in a moment. Okay, but if I switch from B to A, then you can see my white balance change because these are custom preset white balances, or I'm sorry, custom white balances. And you can see it's it's bouncing there. If I go to to preset, then it's preset for 3200 Kelvin, which is close to the color temperature of this light. Now, I've got a wall out here that I'm looking at. Okay, I can see the wall, and the wall is going to be the same color temperature as my ambient room lighting. If I want to, so it's lit by the same source that my subject is lit by. So first of all, I need to make sure that I have a decent exposure on that. It needs to be reading white. And so if I and it almost reads white. So I'm just using that as if it's my card. And now if I go to an A setting, I'm going to set a new custom setting for it. So now that I'm on A, I want to change that. And so I'm going to push the one push button. Do you notice how it changed? Did you see how that changed from an orange now to a neutral gray? You can only see it right around the edges because of the overexposure on that. But did you see that shift?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you set it on A or B as your preset, and right now I'm set on A, and then you push in just once, and it does a white balance check. Now, if I can switch it to B, and you can see B is a little different, but very close, actually. And when I press that, no, it's actually set already for this this room.
So it's on preset and you hit the button, it doesn't do anything, right?
If it's on, I'm sorry, if it's on preset, yes, that is correct. Almost correct. There is something that I can do, but so let's go to preset. Okay, and in preset, I'm set on 3200 Kelvin. Okay, so where did that come from? Well, let's go into the menus. Go into the menu, and in your menu, I'm going to press the jog wheel and, whoops, let's go here. And you should be in your camera menu. Press the jog wheel, and I'm going to scroll down to white balance or WB preset. And in WB preset, I've got 3 options.
Right.
And those 3 options are, do you guys see what those are?
Yes. Outdoor, indoor, and
Outdoor, indoor, and manual.
manual.
If I'm on indoor, do you see a little symbol that shows up when you go to indoor?
Light bulb.
A little light bulb. And then if you go to outdoor,
Sun. The sun.
a sun symbol. And those are pretty universal for like color meters, for white balance symbols, and so forth. So the one is a tungsten light, the other is daylight, and the other thing that you might see on a light meter might be a little zigzag flash, which would zigzag lightning bolt, which is the symbol for flash or strobe light. But we don't have to deal with that in this world very often, but sometimes we do. In indoors, it's preset at 3200 Kelvin no matter what. If your preset is indoor, it's 3200 and you cannot change it. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. If my preset is outdoor, okay, now I'm going to show you something that you can change. So I'm going to get out of that. And now you should see the sun symbol with a 0 next to it. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now if I push that one push button now, what's going to get highlighted? Do you see what highlighted?
The sun.
I hear somebody's.
Yep. The sun.
Do I need to mute this? Okay,
Whatever it was went away, I think.
Okay, thank you for closing your speaker. All right, so notice that the sun symbol and the 0 are highlighted. Now scroll up, and what happens to your image?
It's redder or lighter.
Say
It gets
again?
warmer or cooler. It gets warmer or cooler.
Well, if you go up +7, it gets warmer. It's like that's your double warm. Okay, go back to neutral at 0. And then if you go down to -7, you get full blue. You get a full cold look. So it's like a complete shift of color temperature to blue going down, and a complete shift of color temperature to double warm going up. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there's something else that you can do. All right, so let's go back to 0 on that and leave that setting at 0. And now I want you to go into your menu and go into your camera set and go down to white balance temperature set. And notice that your white balance temperature set is 3200, okay? But we're on outdoor lighting, right? It's on 3200. Now start scrolling up. And go to 6500. Okay. And now go ahead and escape from that. And okay, hold on a second. Okay, now if you click out of white balance, what happened to your image? Is it neutral? Something's, this isn't what I remember here. Hold on a second. Let me hit the one push. Well, in the new firmware, it's slightly different. Okay, so I'm going to take you somewhere else. So go. I want you to go back into your menu, and I want you to go to white balance preset, and I want you to go down to manual white balance temperature. It used to be that there were, and then you can exit out of that. Okay, so now you should see, what color temperature do you see showing up on your screen? You set it at 6500, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so, and do you see 6500 on your screen?
Yes.
Your LCD? You should. Okay, so if I want to affect white balance, and I'm in preset, okay, now I'm preset on 6500 Kelvin. Okay, what if I want to make a quick change? I'm going to press the one push button, and notice what happens to the 6500. What happened? Was it highlighted with a white box?
Yes.
Yes, not getting any feedback, so.
Yes.
Okay, so now what does that mean? If it's highlighted with the white box, that means you can change it. Yes?
Yeah, with the scroll wheel.
Okay, so scroll up toward, and you'll see what's happening as you scroll upward.
Gets darker.
It's getting darker?
Mine is.
It shouldn't be getting darker at all. It should be getting warmer.
I'm not sure where you are.
Oh, he might be messing with the
Okay,
shutter.
we're talking about the one push button,
One push button. Yeah.
and we were at 6,500 Kelvin,
Yeah, and it's highlighted.
and you highlighted it, and when you highlighted it, you are able to adjust color temperature up or down.
Are you
Now,
on preset or A and B?
on preset.
Mine's not highlighted.
Yeah, mine's not highlighting either. It may be, I'm still on the old firmware where I haven't upgraded yet. I haven't done that.
I got the new firmware, but it's not highlighted.
Well, it should. Okay, you're on preset.
Right.
Did you push in on white balance so that the number actually is showing on your screen?
No, I got a light bulb coming up.
You have a light bulb coming up. Well, that means that you are not on the right preset. So go into your menu, and once again, go to white balance preset. Have your white balance preset on manual white balance temperature.
I got you. Okay.
Is it there now?
Now I got 6,500. Yes.
Okay, so now you have 6,500, and if you press the one push button, it highlights the 6,500, correct?
Correct.
And now you should be able to scroll up or down to change color temperature.
Now it is
What
getting
you're
warmer.
changing is what you are telling it the color temperature balance of the light is.
Now,
And
Bob,
notice
I might be jumping ahead, but I got a question.
yes,
Picture profiles.
okay, you are jumping ahead to week 4.
Okay.
I'll cover that in week
white
4
balance
because
thing.
that's a lot more advanced for us to get into that, and we'll never get through this if we do that. If you want to talk to me offline about that, that's fine. 2,300 Kelvin, if you go all the way down, you're going to get a blue look. You can see my screen's bluish. As I scroll up, note how the color temperature changes and gets warmer.
Yep.
The higher you go, the warmer it gets, until you can go all the way to super, super warm at 15,000 Kelvin. Okay, but 2,300 Kelvin, since this is, what color temperature is the light that we decide?
32.
It's somewhere actually probably around 2,900 Kelvin, you know, to be for real. But if we go down to 2,300 Kelvin, it's not going to look that much bluer. Whereas if we had, you know, tungsten light and daylight in the same scene, then we could really strongly affect the look. Okay. So if we were on daylight balance and went down to 2,300, it would look super warm. But since we're on tungsten balance and only going to 2,300, which is just a few steps down, it doesn't look that cool. Okay. What you're telling it is that whatever the color temperature is, anything above it is going to look warmer, anything below it is going to look cooler. Because you're making this the neutral balance. Anything above it is going to look warmer, anything below it is going to look cooler. Okay. All right. But it's always in reference to what the light source is. So if it's not a cold light source, but a warm light source, you know, it's going to depend on what that actual color temperature of that light source is. All right. So those are actually the basics, but let's look at another view of our menu. And so if we go into this and we go down, we have another way of changing that level other than the one push button. We can preset that level up or down in the menus, but really you're changing the same thing here. And you have to be on outdoor outdoor as your preset in order for the outdoor level function to work as set in the menus. Your white balance temperature set, you can set at, now notice here, I scrolled down all the way to 2300, and here it is the same thing that I had set on the scroll wheel using the one push. So you can change it here, or you can change it using the one push button in your jog wheel. There. They are the same controls. Exactly. So black balance is just a balancing of what is black for the camera. AE shift is an automatic exposure shift. I touched on that the other day. And you can make a positive or negative shift in small increments of a certain amount of exposure. EV is exposure value, and that's equivalent to a 1 EV is equal to 1 stop. So 1 EV would be a bump up of exposure, an increase of 1 stop. A half EV, 0.5 EV is a half stop adjustment. So what you're telling it is that if this works when you're in auto or anything else, is you're telling it to bias your image more open or more closed. And it may depend on the way you're reading your histograms. Histograms will be our next topic, histograms exposure and some of these other features. Okay, so what I want to do now is get out of this, and I'm going to go and I'm going to show you some images in this presentation that I took, and you can just see how you can make adjustments to an image and how those can translate to a change in the look and feel of the shot. So I took something that was in mixed light, and you can see here we're under fluorescent light, so the color balance is set for 4100 Kelvin because the light sources were about 4100 Kelvin. So at 4100 Kelvin, a 2300 K color temperature setting looks cool. If we increase that Kelvin setting up to 3200, notice that it gets a little warmer and a little more neutral. And then if we move up toward 4200 Kelvin, notice now the wood is nice and rich and the greens are looking more neutral there. The windows that are in the background, they're actually, that's daylight leaking through, so they should look a little blue. And now, as we move toward 5600, what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen to the windows in the back?
It'll darken, go warm up.
Not darken. So we're not talking about changing the brightness or darkness of it. We're talking about color shift only. They will warm up until they're a little more neutral, since that daylight is close to 5600 Kelvin. It may actually be a little cooler than that, meaning that it's closer to 6000 or 6500 Kelvin, but we'll see which one looks actually most natural. But
Well, that's,
as we go toward 5600, under 4100 light, what happened to our foreground subject? Is it neutral or warmer?
No, got much warmer.
warmer.
Warmer. And as we go towards 6500 Kelvin, look at the daylight windows. Do they look neutral gray now?
Right.
Yeah,
But
you
look
get-
how much warmer our foreground subject is because it's under 4100 light. And as we go toward 8000, now the windows are looking warmer, but the subject is also looking extra warm. See the yellow on the right side there of the glass. And 12,000 Kelvin, very, very warm. Our daylight looks extra warm. Okay, so let's make a shift again. So here's, again, going back to 3200 Kelvin under 4100 fluorescent light. Okay, now we're going to look at that. That's the 4100. Here's daylight, 5600. Do you notice that neither one of these looks right? Right?
Right.
These are like your presets, though. Tungsten, daylight. What do you notice about the daylight? Look at the colors of the wood. Do you see any kind of hints of any other colors in there?
No, it's kind of light color washed out. It's cool.
It's cool, but it's also got a slight greenish tint to both of them. See that? Okay, so we're going to do a white balance. Okay, and after we've done a white balance, here's what we get. Do you see a difference?
Oh, yeah.
What did we take away? We took away some green. Do you see it now?
Right.
Aye. Yeah.
Yeah, when we switch back and forth quickly, you can more easily see the color differences. But your eye gets so used to seeing something that you don't really notice how that fools your eye. So if you don't have a reference to look at, then it doesn't really mean anything. You have to have a reference to something else in order to know that that's the true look of the item, because we place it under under fluorescent light that has a green spike, and pretty soon our eye gets adjusted to that, and that looks like normal light. Okay, so all right, so let's go forward. Okay, so here's our white balance, and now here's changing to daylight with a white balance. Now I've got a daylight source and white balance. It looks different, doesn't it? It's 5600 source and okay. The windows are neutralized. Did a white balance on the windows. Okay. But it's not a neutral light in the foreground. That light in the foreground is a tungsten light. So you can see how much warmer it is. Now, here what I'm going to show you is shifting from this and using the levels. So in a daylight, you're in the daylight mode and you're at 0. So neutral is 0. Here it is with a -7. -7, 0. +7, 0. -7, +7. See how radical a difference you can get between those three settings?
Still
But
don't look
and
white
you've got
balance.
plus or minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, what was that?
It doesn't look like the white balance is correct.
No, the white balance it's, oh, here overall? No,
Right.
it's a little biased toward warm.
Yeah, just a little.
Yes. Yes. No, it was, I mean, when we went to daylight, remember we're under 4100 Kelvin, so that makes the daylight warmer looking. Because 4100 is actually a warmer color temperature than daylight is. Does that make sense?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of hard to juggle it in your brain, but that's what you're getting. Okay, so let's look at a couple of charts. Here again, daylight balance. Look at the chips. Get a good look at the chips, and now we're going to look at under skylight instead of direct sunlight. Skylight, what happened? Do you see the shift?
Mm-hmm.
Not much.
Not a lot, because it's correct. We've got the right exposure, so we've adjusted exposure.
The
But
saturation doesn't change a whole lot as much as the black really is what you notice the most.
yes, the other thing is, look at there's some greens and blues that are shifting just a little bit.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can. Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, so it's in the daylight range that it's actually affecting it more. The skin tone range, you know, and the reds and everything else, and the greens, the lighter greens that is, aren't really shifting much at all. But it actually holds pretty well in different types of sunlight, skylight, daylight. Now here's coming up with so kind of focus on the chart, and what we're going to see is a +1 setting. So this is daylight with a +1 outside. Little warmer, a little bit warmer. You're seeing some shifts due to exposure shifts. Little bit warmer yet. What colors are getting warmer as we go? See, the orange is getting brighter. Look at that orange on the right side. Now watch it getting brighter and more contrasty as we go.
Right. So the green is getting duller.
Yes, the greens are being neutralized by the warmer color, because the orange and blue are like opposites. Notice also that the blues, again, notice that the blues, as we go up, the blues go from more saturated to slightly, they're shifting, they're getting a little more muted as we add more orange to it. Okay, so that's pretty much it. But you guys can look at those charts and as well in that PDF if you downloaded it, and you have those as a reference. Try playing with these settings yourselves, and you'll find that very useful. When you get into, just a last note on this, when you get into picture profiles, there are a number of settings in picture profiles for color. One thing to note is that if you mess up your picture profile, there's a reset at the bottom of the menu. Very useful thing.
Good to know.
Now, once you get proficient at using the profiles, then you are able to save them, make adjustments, and then load your custom profiles. Once you have done a firmware update, you can get that feature. So it's kind of an advanced feature, but some of you will be ready for that, you know, well before others. So, but that'll be week 4. We'll go through that, and I'm sure that when you get back into some more camera classes, as in digital cinematography 1 and 2, you'll be coming back to camera, you know, to go over camera features and maybe work with them in different ways. But because you'll be getting closer to, uh, you should be much more proficient with the camera by the time you get there, because you're going to have gone through lighting, you're going to have gone through sound, through field production, and so forth, and as well as editing. You'll know a lot more about what you want to shoot and why and how. So hopefully.
Well, my question about picture profiles
Yes, sir.
related to white balance. Does white balance change in the picture profile, or does the picture profile already have the white balance set
It
in
does
there?
not have white balance in it. It
Okay.
has settings for adjusting the color bias,
Okay.
uh, but it doesn't do white balance for you at all. You need
Okay.
to white balance, and under the lighting that you're under, you want to be
Right.
neutral, and then you can apply a custom picture profile on top of that, or first of all, you can change your color look through the menus and through the jog wheel and the one push button.
Now, would you
Um,
set white balance first, or just go ahead and set your picture profile that you know for that area, then do your white balance?
I would set your picture profile for the look and the gamma settings that you're going to use. Uh,
Okay.
Gamma has to do with the tonal contrast, but it also affects your color contrast
Okay.
and color intensity. So, so each of those profiles does a little different um, number on the picture. But we'll go over each of those things in detail again during the fourth week. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Well, it's been another great hour and a half. Look at that. We're right at it. How about that? And so thank you all for coming. Glad to see all the same faces here. Um, and glad you were able to make it. In fact, we had a much bigger showing this week. Glad to see some new faces here. And so that's it for today. Uh, uh, Anybody needs to, I'm going to stop the recording. Anybody needs to download the PDF.